Now that two senior public servants have been arrested and charged, other employees in the public sector of the British Virgin Islands are afraid to do their jobs. That's the claim from Deputy Premier Kye Rymer, who spoke on the issue during a meeting of the territory's House of Assembly on Tuesday.
Madam Speaker, there is now this trepidation within the government, and it's very difficult right now as even ministers to get anything achieved based on what is happening with public officers who are doing their jobs.
On October 10th, former director of the International Affairs Secretariat, Najan Christopher, was arrested and charged with breach of trust and false assumption of authority, approximately 5 months after she reportedly sent a diplomatic note requesting the release of disgraced former Premier Andrew Foy due to his alleged diplomatic immunity from prosecution. Foy's defense counsel presented the letter dated May 3rd and bearing the official stamp of the BVI's International Affairs Secretariat to the court as part of the argument why the former premier should be immediately released from custody. However, prosecutors dismissed the note as having no authority, as any such claim would have to be asserted by the United Kingdom, the BVI's colonial power. At the time, then acting Premier Dr. Natalia Wheatley disavowed the note completely.
Both the Permanent Secretary in the Premier's office, Dr. Caroline O'Neill Morton, and I were unaware of the correspondence dated the 3rd of May. At the time, I was in the House of Assembly and the Permanent Secretary in her office carrying out her normal functions. It appears that the preparation and sending out of the correspondence were the actions of a rogue public officer who acted without authorization or the knowledge of myself as acting premier or the permanent secretary. The content of this letter regarding diplomatic immunity for Honorable Foy does not reflect the position of the premier's office or the government of the Virgin Islands. I repeat, the content of this letter regarding diplomatic immunity for Honorable Foy does not reflect the position of the Premier's office or the government of the Virgin Islands. Dr. O'Neill Morton is currently engaged with the Deputy Governor, Mr. David Archer, to have the matter immediately investigated and addressed without delay.
Following news of Christopher's arrest came confirmation that the Assistant Secretary in the Ministry of Education, Lorna Stevens, had also been arrested and charged with breach of trust by a public officer. It is not immediately clear why Stevens was arrested, but local publication BVI News reports that she was one called before the Commission of Inquiry last year to give evidence regarding the construction of a perimeter wall around the Elmore Stout High School, a project that experienced massive cost overruns and was the subject of an investigation begun in 2019. That probe has already resulted in the arrest of at least one person previously, local businessman Kelvin Thomas, who was hit with several fraud charges as a result. Both Stevens and Christopher have since been bailed as they await their respective trials. Despite the Premier's repudiation of the issuance of the letter by Christopher, she has received support from some members of society. BVI News reports talk show host Julio Henry calling the charges against her hypocrisy, asserting that Christopher was just doing her job in writing the letter. Henry contrasted Christopher's current legal jeopardy with Police Commissioner Mark Collins, who faced no sanctions for a widely panned recruitment video which painted the BVI as a crime haven riddled with gun violence. Claude Skelton-Klein, another radio personality, reportedly suggested that Christopher consider standing for elected office, making his comments hours after she was charged with violating the public's trust. As the territory grapples with the issues of entrenched corruption and the challenges to good governance that have resulted in a recommendation to partially suspend the constitution to impose direct rule by the UK, the Deputy Premier is arguing that the arrest of public sector workers should be looked at carefully.
There should be a standard across the board. You have public officers now saying, I ain't doing this because I ain't going to get locked up. I don't want to do this. But Madam Speaker, we have a country to run. But I could understand what they're going through because I was a public officer as well. And I hope that those processes were followed, because going through the public service, the general orders, it tells you if you have an issue, whether you did something wrong, you would get whether a suspension or something on your record. But to take somebody straight to the courthouse, I think something is wrong there, Madam Speaker.